Hello everyone, welcome to Nordegraf's Game Breakdown. This is a first impressions critique video of the game Groundbreakers. Groundbreakers was developed by Vietnam-based game developer United Indie. It's a turn-based strategy game that kind of breaks the traditional system of class. You can basically customize your robots any way you want to. It's kind of interesting, but how does the game stand up? Well, let's talk about it. First of all, let's start with the first thing you notice when you see the game. The graphics. The graphics are good enough. I say, you know how Unity games can be. If you don't, Unity games can go from really bad or to really good. There's some amazing Unity games. It really varies by dev by dev. This one is kind of charming. It has kind of its own charm to it. The robots themselves, they look good. They do have kind of their own personality. There seems to be enough variety there. There's multiple types of robots and each of them do its own thing. The animations are good. The story is told kind of like a visual novel-esque way, if that makes any sense. It's basically told by these anime characters talking. I'm personally not a big fan of anime, so that thing didn't really stand out to me that much. Now that's pretty much it for the graphics. Now let's move on to the gameplay, shall we? Well, the gameplay is a basic turn-based RPG, much like Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Battles, which are mostly what I have experience with. Each person has their own robots on each side of the screen, and you must fight, and there is an objective to complete. Either capture an area, or defeat all the robots of the other guy, or grab more points than the other guy until before the time runs out, because there is a timer at the top of the screen that starts counting down. Each robot has their own movement pool, counted by time units, and they have their own personal skills. They can go from an attack that heals you, an attack that immobilizes the enemy, and an attack that makes the unit jump from one point to the other. This gives each robot its own way to deal with certain situations, and adds quite a bit of depth to the combat in itself. However, there are certain things that I found that I had a problem with. Mostly the randomization. There's in each map there can be certain how can I put this? There can be certain disasters or things at play. For example, I ran into a map that had springs appear on the map from certain points, and they threw you off and they can damage your bot when they fall down. I found that a little annoying. It adds a certain bit of RNG, which I'm just not comfortable with personally. There's also, and you can also control that by using time units too, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I actually did not run into a point where the enemy controlled that. And this level of randomization can add a different way can make each battle seem different, but I don't personally think it's on a good level, as it makes certain battles completely turn for the enemy, and that can get a little just personally annoying. They can be very disruptive. But something that I found very cool is that there's a level of crafting and upgrading your little robots for them to do more damage. Also, you can level up, make your skills better. It will also improve your robot stats, which is really cool. You can craft by putting these little pieces in each slot of a robot, and it's kind of random. I do believe you can kind of tell what pieces they are by the little blueprint of the robot at the bottom. If you make something that uses that kind of piece, for example, you can use an oval piece and a blade, and that will make a white knight or something like that. You know, things like that. Also, you can upgrade your robots by inserting ships into them. Each do a different stuff, like reflect damage, give you a charge every time you hit an enemy, that if the enemy is charged with 10 of those, they get stunned or just outright raise their damage. It adds it's kind of like stickers in Smash Bros, and it's really cool. Like, it's really cool that there is that. This is like one of the best things that I think are in this game. As for the story is not anything to write home about. It's basically the world got flooded, and corporations are fighting for land and resources, and it's nothing to write home about. Although there is a certain cool factor that each time you start a campaign, the map is completely different. You can add more enemies to the campaign. You can like change the size of the map that you have to conquer. It's kind of interesting You can also change the difficulty of the enemies. It's kind of interesting, but I feel like it kind of makes so that the story itself is not... It doesn't feel cohesive because the story doesn't change. It's just every now and then an anime portrait will come around and tell you what, oh, this is happening, you did this, you did that, and until, oh, now you need to do this. It's it kind of takes away some of the cohesiveness of the story. It doesn't feel very, I would say, personal, but I think it's still very cool that they can do that they can change the, like, each campaign can be different. You can play a different enemy and things like that. You fight different enemies. It adds a certain level of interest to the story. As for the execution, how this whole all work together, I personally played a good 2 or so hours of this game, almost 2 hours, and I didn't find myself in trouble with it. The information they give you, the tutorial, is very just throwing information at you, hoping it sticks. It's kind of hard to like absorb all of that. The music is just not memorable enough, I guess. It's just a repeating song that goes on, and sometimes there's no music at all, like in the lab or in the crafting area. You don't really hear music during that. You just mostly hear music when you're in the actual game and the menu. And for the entire, like, how the gameplay works with the story and everything, I don't personally think the anime and the robots, the art styles, work well enough together. It's, again, nothing to write home about. It's not an amazing game. If you like turn-based strategy games, it can be interesting to get into this. However, it will take some, how can I put it? It will take some studying to do, you know? You have to, like, really get into the meat of the game and see what each robot does personally before you start using it, because at the start you're gonna lose a lot of games. You're just gonna lose a lot of games. The opponents have just straight up better items, like they just have straight up better robots. There's a tide that goes up and down that restricts movement, and you never know if the tide is gonna go actually up or down. The random elements just gonna screw you over a lot at the start, right? So I would suggest, if you're gonna play this game, just level up your robots a lot. Play the Infinity Mine, which is kind of this thing that random thing where enemies just keep coming. You have to defeat them all, and it gets harder and harder each level. Just grind that out. There's gonna be a lot of grinding at the start until you can get some really good robots. Now, I'm not a big fan of turn-based strategy games. There are very few strategy games that turn-based strategy games that I really like, specifically Advanced Wars and Ogre Battle. Those are really big favorites of mine. This game is not personally for me. Now, if anything I told you here tickles your fancy somehow, the game is going to be $10 with a 25% discount on the launch week. So if anything you saw here interests you, I suggest you get it. Otherwise, I think there are better strategy games out there. So, this has been Nordegraf Game Breakdown. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you. I'll catch you guys on the flip side.